Welcome learner to the lecture 4 which is based on meaning of demand, demand function, types of demand and factor affecting demand. Here are some learning objectives. By the end of this lecture, learner will be able to learn defined demand and its essential components along with differentiate between individual and market demand, understand and interpret the demand function through the individual and market demand. The next one is classify various types of demand. The last one is analyze factor influencing demand, or it may be called as determinants of demand. Now, let's talk about the meaning of demand. What is demand? Demand refers to the quantity of a commodity the customer is willing and capable to purchase. So here, willing and capable to purchase. The both thing defines demand where willingness to buy and desire to buy. Here, in this definition, it defines the quantity of a commodity that consumer is willing and capable to purchase at any given time at each possible prices. Here you have seen this demand are can be expressed with respect to individual demand and market demand, whereas in individual demand of a good or services that a consumer is willing and capable to purchase at each possible price during a given period of time, because it is talking about the individual demand. When we talk about the market demand, the quantity of good that all consumers are willing and capable to purchase at every possible price within a given period of time, called market demand. Market demand is nothing but a summation of all individual demand. Moving on to the next slide, let's see the definition of demand by various economists, that is Alfred Marshall, Benham, Stonier, Hack, and Alley. Let's start with the first, Alfred Marshall. Alfred Marshall defined demand means the quantity of it which will be bought at a given price at a given time. So here Marshall emphasized that demand depends upon price and time. For example, consumer may demand more smartphone if their prices decreases as a particular time. Whereas when we talk about the Benham defined demand for anything at a given price is the amount of which will be bought per unit of time. Here Benham focused on the quantity purchased over a specific period of time. For example, a household may demand 5 kg of rice per week, a certain price. When we talk about the Stonier and Haig, it defines demand to the quantities of a commodity that consumer will buy at different prices at different prices. Here, both highlights the relationship between price and quantity demanded. For example, if the price of tea decreases, consumer may buy larger quantities. So, and the last one is Ali. Ali defined demand is the desire for a commodity backed by the willingness and ability to pay. Here, Ali more focused on that desire plus ability to pay is the demand. Here, key points from this definition is demand depends on price, where demand measure over a period of time, and along with demand represent the quantity consumers are willing and able to pay. The definitions given by these economists explain that demand represent the quantity of a commodity that consumers are willing and able to purchase at different prices within a given period of time. In the earlier slide, we have already seen there are two types of demand, that is done by the individual demand function or market demand function, and both are demanded by the consumer. So here we will talk about the demand function, that is what is demand function, the relationship between the quantity demanded for a particular commodity and the factor influencing it's expressed by demand function. So here we can talk about the individual demand function or individual consumer or all the consumer in the market. It is called the market demand function. So let us talk about the individual demand function. So here individual demand function describe the functional relationship between the individual quantity demanded of a particular commodity and the factor influencing it is defined as individual demand function. So here you have seen that demand individual demand is a function of price, that is px, price of given commodity, price of related goods, income of the consumer, that denotes y, taste and preferences, and expectations of change in price in the future. Now, let's see the individual demand schedule of table and graph. Here, you have seen that there is a table presentation. Here you have seen that price has in a decreasing order and quantity demand is in increasing order, and we can talk about the individual demand of consumer. What is that? The consumer is willing and capable to purchase at different level of pricing during a given period of time. So here you have seen that there is a graph where price has been taken vertical axis and quantity demanded has been taken horizontal axis. We have seen that when the price is 10, the quantity demanded is 20. And when the price decreases 10 to 9, the quantity demanded increases from 21 here. Now, let's talk about again when the price decreases from 9 to 8, the quantity demanded increases from 21 to 22. So here you have seen that when the price is decreases, the quantity demanded will increase. So here we can say that there is a negative relationship between the price and quantity demanded of a consumer. You have seen that when the price is decreases from 10 to 5 and quantity demanded increases from 20 to 25. We have seen in the graph where price is decreases from 5 and quantity demanded increases to 25. There you have seen that there is a downward sloping of demand curve. This is the individual demand curve of a commodity. Now, let's talk about the market demand function. What is the market demand function? The market demand function describes the functional relationship between the market demand of a particular commodity and the factor influencing. It is the market demand function. As you have seen that we have already studied the individual demand. So, what we do? We have to summarize the all individual demand, and that is directly reflect the market demand function. When we are adding all the household individual demand in a summarized way, it is called the market demand. So what it how it can be expressed here is seen that demand is a function of, or it may be called as demand for a commodity is a function of price of a commodity, price of related good, income of the consumer, taste and preferences, expectations of change in price in future, size and composition of the population, season and weather, and distribution of income. Now, here I've seen the market demand schedule. What is that? The aggregate of all individual demand schedule at all prices. This is called the market demand schedule. You have seen this table. Here you have seen that this is the prices which is in decreasing way. There is individual demand, that is the household of demand A and household of demand B. You have seen that when the prices are decreasing, the household demand of demand A and B are increasing. And what is the market demand? Market demand is nothing but all the individual demand schedule. So here I've seen that we are adding the individual demand schedule of household A and household B, and this is depicted in the particular graph, the market demand schedule, where you have seen that the prices are decreasing and individual household of demand are in a increasing way. So here What is that? Here you have seen that this is the total market demand. And what particular this graph shown? This graph shows that the demand is downward sloping due to the negative relationship between the price and quantity demand. Now, let's talk about the types of demand. There are different types of demand. You have seen that. Let's talk about one by one. The first one is individual demand. So here, individual demand is nothing but a single consumer for a commodity at different prices during a given period of time. Here, for example, is one household demanding 5 kg of sugar per month. Now, let's talk about the market demand. What is market demand? The total demand of all consumer for a commodity at different prices during a given period of time. It's nothing but a sum of all individual demands. Now, let's talk about the direct demand. What is direct demand? Direct demand for goods that has satisfied human wants directly. For example, food, clothes, and mobile phones. Now, let's talk about what is derived demand. Derived demand is arises because of demand for another good. It does not satisfy the human demand directly, but in a another way. So, here the next type of demand is joint demand. Joint demand is nothing but a complementary demand when two or more goods are demanded together, for example, car and petrol. Now, let's talk about the composite demand. Composite demand means there is a one commodity that has several uses. For example, the electricity is also used for lighting, heating, and machine. Then the next one is competitive demand. The competitive demand is nothing but a substitute demand when a goods can be used in the place of each other. For example, tea and coffee. Now, the next one is elastic and inelastic demand. As we talk about the elastic demand, small change in prices, large change in demand. When there is a small change in prices, there is a large change in quantity demanded by the consumer, for example, luxury goods. And what is inelastic demand? Inelastic demand is nothing but a large change in price and there's a small change in demand. For example, necessity goods like salt and medicine. The next type of demand is short run and long run demand, where we have seen that in short run demand, immediate response to price changes, but in long run demand, demand after sufficient time adjustment. This is all about the types of demand. Now, moving to the next slide, let's talk about the factor affecting demand, where it does not depend only its price. Many other economic and social factors also influence the quantity demanded. These factors are known as determinants of demand. So, the first determinant is price of the commodity. The price of the commodity itself is the most important factor affecting demand. According to the law of demand, there is an inverse relationship between the price and quantity demanded. Here you have seen that when the price increases, demand decreases. When the price decreases, demand increases. This defines the law of demand. The next one is income of the consumer. The income of the consumer affect their purchasing power, where in the normal goods case, income may increases, the demand may also increases, but in inferior good case, the income increases, demand decreases. For example, when income increases, people may buy branded clothes or better quality product instead of cheap alternatives. The next one is price of related goods, in which the first one is substitute goods. Substitute goods are those goods that can replace each other, for example, tea and coffee. Price of tea may be increased, the demand for coffee also increases. The next one is complementary goods. In complementary goods are used, together where the price of petrol increases, the demand for car may be decrease. The next one is taste and preferences. Consumer taste, habit, fashion trends, and advertising influence demand. For example, if a product become fashionable or popular, its demand increases. A new smartphone model with advanced feature increases consumer demand. Now, the next one is future expectation. Consumer expectation about future prices also changes demand. If consumer expect price to rise in the future, the demand increases now. But if the consumer expect price to fall, the demand decrease now. So people may buy gold today if they expect its price to increase later. The next one is population. Population size also affect the market demand, where increase in population leads to increase in demand. For example, urban population growth increases demand for housing, food, and transportation. The next one is distribution of income. Here, how income is distributed in society also affect demand. Equal distribution will be higher demand for basic good, but unequal distribution is higher demand for luxury good. When more people have modern income, demand for food clothing increases. Here, the next one is government policy. Government action such as taxation, subsidies, and regulation influence demand, where when the taxes is increases, demand also decrease. When the subsidy increases, demand also increases. For example, government subsidy on fertilizer increases demand among farmers. The next one is climate and season, where weather condition influence demand for certain product. For example, demand for woolen clothes increases in winter, demand for cold drink increases in summer. Here, demand is influenced by several factors, but these determinants help businesses understand and predict consumer purchasing behavior. Thank you so much, students. We will discuss law of demand and its application on the next chapter.